This is the Burning Issue on the Happy World of 5FM Radio, bringing you hot, smoldering topics on a weekly basis. Your participation is important.
Good morning and welcome to yet another edition, and this is the Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue here on the Happy World of 5FM Radio on 89.9 in Lusaka, and we are also live on our Facebook page, and that's 5FM Radio Zambia page, and follow us, leave us your comment as well, and we'll be very grateful to hear from you, our listeners. Remember, we are also live on our partner radio. These are Tuta FM in Mansa on 90.7 FM. And thank you very much for joining us, the people of Mansa. We sure hope that it is also raining in your area there where you are. And also Live FM in Kabwe, covering the rest of Central Province on 91.1. We sure hope that it is also raining in Kabwe and Central Province as a whole. And we cross over to Southern Province. Southern Province is well catered for because Weather FM Radio is carrying this program live also on 98.7 in Mazabuka. We are grateful that you found time to tune in. I'm your host, Zakaria Banda. Now today, we've decided to discuss very important issues around climate change and around agriculture development. And to help us discuss all these, I have with me in the studio today, Dr. Brivery Siamabele, who is a lecturer of development studies at the University of Zambia. It's a pleasure to have you, Doc, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Zakaria. It's a pleasure being here.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Fine, thank you. The rains are finally here.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I think in our discussion arranging for this program, I did mention that we will also talk about the delayed rains.
Oh yeah.
And while we were at it, here we are. We have the rains. But Doc, as we get into, or before we get into the nitty-gritties of our discussion today, I would like to, just for the sake of our listeners, ask you to just introduce yourself and tell us what you do. We understand you're a lecturer in as far as development studies are concerned, but majors and where you are concentrating on.
Thank you so much, Zakaria, and it's always good being here. So I think firstly, good morning to the listeners. My name's Brivery Siamabele from the University of Zambia Development Studies Department. Of course, development studies is a cutting cross program. So we have a number of programs running under the department. And my specialty is more on climate change, adaptation and mitigation, and also looking at the smallholder agriculture, productivity, livelihoods, and also trying to see how small-scale farmers can enhance their market access and also, in a way, improve their livelihoods, especially amidst the challenging climate events and eventualities. Yeah.
Great. And I believe that you will definitely be a great resource today in as far as that area is concerned. But let's also get into the nitty-gritty for the sake of those listening in and they don't understand what you mean by climate change. Would you be in a position to explain to us what climate change and to our listeners there is?
I think in a layman's language, we can say, I think we can draw it from the changes in the weather patterns,
right,
and also the changes in the parameters, where when you compare it in the past 30 years or past 50 years ago,
right.
I mean, the weather patterns and were not as they are now, especially when you talk about wind direction, when you talk about the temperatures, which we're experiencing. I think this year we've had high temperatures in the Zambian society and the region at large. But also, we also look at it from the changes in the rainfall pattern and also the amount of rain that societies receive. But also, we can look at it from, I mean, issues of challenges in as far as the fertilities of the soil are concerned, and issues of deforestation and issues of impacts on agricultural productivity, especially for a society like Zambia, where a majority of the people depend on agriculture for their livelihoods. So climate is really a pertinent issue to discuss at this point in time in the societies, especially in Southern Africa, where a majority of the people really depend on agriculture. And the type of agriculture we're talking about, this is small scale farmer. And then the aspects of adaptation has to come in, because these are people that depend on less than 3 hectares, or for argument's sake, less than 5 hectares, and then they are hit in terms of months. You know that in the past 10, 15 years, or let me say 20 years, Zambia usually had the normal rain from sometimes October all the way up to March, April there. But then we are talking about the changes currently, where this is mid-December. That's when we are having rain. So all these are changes that are, in a way, should be discussed and looked at in order for our small-scale farmers' livelihoods to be sustained. Yeah.
And someone right now is listening in from Shimuyunji, for example, and they're saying, okay, so we understand what climate change is, and yes, we've seen the weather pattern, but then what causes this?
There are quite a number of reasons around the causes of climate change.
Right.
We have the natural phenomenon, which are beyond our control as human beings. And we also have the human activities. Now, what we are discussing about are mainly about the human activity, human interference, human engagement, and human destruction on the natural phenomenon, on the environment. So when someone is asking what are the causes of climate change, and in most cases we hear this debate that, and it's true, that countries like Zambia and other African countries only contributing a small percentage to the climate destruction, climate change. But then we have developed countries that have heavily contributed to all these challenges that we are facing as developing different countries. But and in most cases, I hear most people say, we haven't contributed largely to the causes of climate change as developing countries, so we should be let free to enjoy our environment and everything. But the question that you need to ask yourself is, to what extent can you adapt to the implications of climate change? We have a lot of strong winds that have been seen so destructive in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, through the cyclone issues, and they are hitting hardly with Zambia, especially in the southern part of Zambia, where there are no trees at all. So when the strong winds come from the Indian Ocean, they are not blocked by anything. So they come, and these are the floods that you're experiencing in the southern part. And then you ask yourself a question: yes, we're not contributing a lot, but then have we maintained the natural forest so that it can protect us from the strong winds? The answer is no. So the extent to which we interact with the environment through charcoal burning, I think it needs to be checked. And when we talk about that, it's really a challenge, because a small-scale farmer, when you are hit by climate change issues in terms of rainfall, floods, and the reduced amount of land, then they tend to go to other income-generating activities, which might include charcoal burning. But then the question is, are we ready to sustain the impacts that are coming as a result of deforestation? The answer is no. At some point, we were talking about Chitemene system, which we discouraged in the Zambian society. But I see another form of Chitemene system, Zakaria, and this is through charcoal burning. If you just took a step out there and you check the amount of trees that have been cut for charcoal, it will leave you with a lot of worries. And in the next 5 years, what do we have? So I think what we need to be talking about, those that are asking what are the causes of climate change and everything, yes, they go beyond what we can see, but in our own means, we have issues of land degradation, deforestation, which then affects the rainfall patterns, wind direction, and all those things. So these are small lot that people should need to take care in order to protect it. Remember, we have been talking about, we talk a lot about deforestation, and mostly we talk a lot about afforestation, but to what extent have we moved that talk for so many years? I think even before I went in school, Zakaria, we've been hearing a lot about afforestation issues, but to what extent has this been materialized? It's not easy. It's not easy, especially when you're dealing with societies that are highly illiterate. I mean, to what extent is someone in typical Vubwi, typical Shangombo, typical understands the purpose of afforestation, and to what extent are they able to plant and water the tree to see it to grow to the expected? I think it's to a lesser extent. But when we do away with land degradation, expansion in terms of agriculture, clearing huge virgin land for agricultural expansion, I think when we do away with that, trust me, if you were planting maize in a 3 hectares portion of land, and then you decide to leave that land for the next 3-4 years, you'll be shocked at the amount of trees that will grow there, the natural trees. And those are the trees that we're talking about. I mean, you can talk about planting these mango trees and these artificial trees and whatever. I mean, they are not performing the same function as the traditional
ones.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that should be clear. So in a way, we'll talk about the income generating activities. If we are to move away from charcoal, I think I'll touch there.
And this is the argument to say, look, if the government is going to ban charcoal burning, this government must bring alternatives, and it's these alternatives that are not being brought forth to perpetrators of charcoal burning, and as a result, they feel, there is no alternative, and they continue doing what they do. Are there any alternatives that have been presented to charcoal burning?
I think there are, and it's a good question, Zakaria. There are. I think that's where we are missing it.
Right.
What I can say, I will start from the perspectives of the CDF. No, if we walked the talk of CDF, like what the current government is talking about, it will drive away our people from interacting with the forest. Because if you trained people in terms of bricklaying, in terms of saloon, in terms of baking, in terms of value addition, in terms of mention a lot of activities, but then they need the knowledge in these. They need the knowledge, and we need to I speak a lot about knowledge transfer to our small-scale farmers. Remember, these are the majority in the population of Zambia. 65% plus, they live in rural areas. And their only source of income is agriculture. And when agriculture does not do well, they then fall back on the forest, because that's the only way. They can't die.
Right.
They cannot die when they are seeing the forest and they know that we can get a bit of 100 kwacha or 50 kwacha by burning the forest in terms of charcoal. So if we are to address that, then we need to improve in as far as sensitization on other income generating activities is concerned. But investment must also be, must follow that. And this can be driven through the private sector. Which has capital, which has the technology, which has the technical know-how. So we can build around what the private sector and the other line ministries are able to do. But then one thing that, and this is not to mean that it hasn't been talked about a lot, but I think there is also a need to emphasize more on the political will aspect. So let's not politicize issues of climate change. It doesn't matter where you belong and where you come from. It is all affecting us. So if we are to find income-generating activities, other income-generating activities away from charcoal to drive the attention of the small-scale farmers, I think Zambia can regenerate the forest that we have, especially societies which were rain belt in the past years, like Southern Province, and they are being affected by the forest, by the floods and droughts. And all this is because of the small, causes of climate change that we neglect and we overlook because we contribute smaller percentage to the challenges of climate change. So I think we need to invest a lot on income generating activities. But again, there was a move by the government of Zambia to increase the agriculture extension services, officers.
Yes.
That is a great move. But then what we need to understand there and do is to improve the monitoring and evaluation, to make sure that these agriculture extension officers are doing what is expected. You'll be shocked that in most rural areas, of course, the radius of one extension officer is quite enormous and beyond. And we are hoping that this increment has reduced that to some extent. But in most cases, if there is lacking monitoring evaluation to ensure that they are doing what they are sent for, you discover that these agriculture extension have become the small and medium farmers who are buying and fertilizer from a poor farmer who has access to FISIP, and then he doesn't have the means, the technical know-how to plant that. And you'll find these are the people buying and purchasing from such people. So they need to do a lot in as far as their service extension services are concerned. For example, talk a lot about crop diversification. Talk a lot about the intercropping to maintain the fertility of the soil. Talk a lot about crop rotation. I think this has to be a talk of the day amongst all our small-scale farmers. What you shouldn't forget is that there is a generational transfer of knowledge. So if we are not bridging this generational transfer of knowledge, which has traditionally, affected our soils and our fertility in the, soil fertility in the rural areas, then we are going to have a lot of societies that are going to be affected by soil erosion. And the soil erosion, we know the impacts of that. So I think the talk around the extension service, these are frontline officers. They need to be, monitored to ensure that what they are doing is actually meeting the needs and the requirements of the small-scale farmers. So it's a lot that needs to be done around there. But one thing we shouldn't forget, this should be the work of everyone, the talk of everyone. It's a society of Zambia. Whether we like it or not, whether even you, Zakaria, are feeling the impact, because there is less productivity in the small-scale farmers, and less productivity is then leading to less, supply in terms of the food demands in the society of Zambia. And then you leave the government with no option, but at some point to import. And where do they get the money to import? That's where you find yourself in a debt. And the more you you put yourself in the debt, the more you put yourself in a cyclic poverty, and you can't come out of that. So we need to start from somewhere to curtail the problem. Otherwise, if we are not careful, we're finding ourselves in a cycle of poverty. And when you're in a cycle of poverty, you know what a cycle means. You know what a web is. You come out of that. And whatever you'll be doing is just be like a drop in the ocean. So that has to be let's start from somewhere.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Dr. Brivery Siamabele is a lecturer of development studies at the University of Zambia, and his area of specialty is climate change and also on agriculture, but with regards the small-scale farmers. Now, let's discuss FISIP, because you mentioned it. What was the idea behind FISIP, and have we achieved the objective of FISIP as a country?
Thank you. FISIP is a very good program. Considering that, like I said, majority of our people live in rural areas, and these are people that have challenges in mechanization, agriculture mechanization, and access to markets, road networking. And if we don't address their challenges, then we cannot increase the productivity. So the main objective is to increase productivity amongst the small-scale farmers, and eventually improve their food security. And when we talk about food security, we are talking about access to food. Availability of food in the houses. And food can be available, but it's not easily accessed by everyone. So when we talk about food security, we mean that it should be houses should be able to access their food. They're not only accessing, but utilize their food. So if you have 300 bags of maize, you should be able to get at least 20 bags or 50 bags to sell, and then access other nutritional aspect of a household. For example, you should be able to buy some milk, you should be able to buy fish, you should be able to buy just other nutritious food stuff. So that is when a household can be considered food secure. But in most cases, what we have seen is this is lacking in our rural households. And sometimes it's about knowledge, anyway, dissemination also, which is key. But I think what we need to understand is that the purpose of FISIP was to increase productivity and eventually improve the food security of the households. So that's the main purpose of that. And I think that is the reason why they rolled it out back in the 2000s. That is the whole purpose, to increase that, because we saw that majority of them that are in rural areas, their productivity is low, and eventually their food security is affected. Then it leaves no option, but the government has to do something through food relief, and that is strains on the government to distribute food relief. So when you empower these, small-scale farmers, we expect a change in some way. But we'll talk about that. Yeah.
But have we achieved the objective of FISIP, really, looking back?
It's really, I think I can straight away say, no, we haven't. we haven't achieved that. And there are quite a lot of challenges around that. So the reason why I'm saying we haven't achieved it is because we are seeing a lot of challenges. Of course, agriculture is not only affected by FISIP, it's affected by all these climate eventualities.
Indeed.
Unprecedented, eventualities that, and we unforeseen. So one of the reasons why I'm saying we haven't achieved, because we are still seeing challenges in food, access to food, in the houses, in rural areas. But of course, remember, rural areas feed urban areas in Zambia. All the food stuff that we get, especially in maize, it is all coming from the small scale farmers in rural areas. So if the productivity there is, an issue, then we have challenges in access to food security as well in urban areas. Because, and how it affects us, when you have less supply, then the demand goes high, then the prices shoot. And if you don't, cross-cut this, you are going to have issues with the houses in urban areas also having a balanced diet, because they only be eating one meal over and over, and then which affects their nutrition aspect. So we haven't achieved that. And one of the reasons I think I can say we haven't achieved, I would say it's high time we went back to the drawing board of FISIP and then redefine FISIP as well. Because what we have seen is that we have people that have been receiving FISIP years back to date. They are still receiving FISIP. So the question is it a FISIP which is a problem, or is it the strategies that are being used? I think for me, it is not a FISIP. The main objective of FISIP is clear, and it's okay. So the strategies that are being used to attain the goal of FISIP, maybe that's where we need to redefine. We can't have a situation where year in, year out, same farmers expect to receive this pack. I think in the recent speeches that have been made, the ministers stressed that over the past 3 seasons, about 1 million plus have been receiving FISIP. And sometimes you find these are the same farmers. These are the same farmers.
And it's not supposed to be the case.
In my view, looking at the financial challenges we're having in Zambia, it shouldn't be the case. So we should create a society where people become to be dependent of themselves. So what we need to do is, Zambia is, let's not run away from the fact that we are a developing country. So we have limited resources. So we need to redefine FISIP to a point where we can graduate farmers. We can graduate farmers. Let it not be an entitlement. Let it not be an entitlement. And I'm not saying it is an entitlement, but I'm just saying, let it not be an entitlement. Let's not have same people receiving year in, year out. We need to redefine it. And I go back to the monitoring mechanisms so that we know, if we go to a rural area, let's say you come from Vobwe, and if we go to Vobwe there, we give you 3 packs of, or let's say 4 packs of fertilizer, whatever, top dressing, and 2, D. Yeah. So what we need to do is, we need to know where you have used that fertilizer, and we need to know your production, and we need to know whether you have improved from the time you started receiving to where you are now. So that the government remember, we have 65%. 1 million is just a portion, of 65. Population of Zambia, we are 19 plus or 20 plus. And then only 1 million are receiving receiving FISIP. Yeah. And we are saying 65% of Zambia's population are in rural areas. So it's just a drop in the ocean. So if we created, measures of graduating people, at least after 2 years or so, you should be able to graduate, so that new people can come in on the program. And then that way we will be addressing, firstly, the stamina of the small scale farmers. They will be able to stand by themselves because they've been empowered. Because it's an empowerment too as well. So they have been empowered. And you see that in the next 5-10 years, you expand beyond the 1 million that you are focusing on. You expand. You even be talking about maybe half the 65% of the population are having been attended to in as far as productivity is concerned. And if we can redefine it in that way, then we will be heading somewhere. Otherwise, if you ask me, I eat a lot of rural areas, you discover that same households, the medium and the emerging farmers, those that have canters and have animals and have small, they are the same ones that are still benefiting. Of course, it has been redefined. As much as it has been redefined, there are still challenges, because you discover that a vulnerable households, but viable, is not able to raise that 400 pack to contribute to the cooperative, right? Then someone else has the capacity to pay on your name. And then fertilizer comes in your name. But this person is not using that. You are not going to use it because there's someone who paid for you. So those are things that, of course, the government has tried to address that. But I think there is more that needs to be done in order for the emerging farmers to stand by themselves. This is meant for vulnerable but viable farmers, not for the emerging farmers. I think we have to face that. And if you want to be also as blunt as possible, we even have people that are working like you, Zakaria.
Right.
you might have a small scale, you might have a small farm somewhere in rural areas, and you discover that you are working here in Lusaka. And when you go to your rural area, you have people that find they are selling fertilizer. You are the biggest culprit. You are buying fertilizer from the vulnerable ones. So I think that is also, of course, I mean, it's a will, someone can sell. But the monitoring activities of, if you've sold your fertilizer, next year you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't be on the pack to receive it, because the government is not giving you to sell. They are giving you to improve your product.
I have had experiences where fertilizer has been brought to me for sale. And I asked this man, why are you selling? He said, no, because, you know, I got and my wife got, so put together, then we have excess. So it's the excess that we are selling.
But again, there is a problem there. I got and my wife got. Why? I mean, why should two people get? Yeah, I think that's
and it's happening. And it's happening.
And this is why I'm saying that those are some of the issues that we need to address. And the only people that can help us are the frontliners, who are the agriculture extensions, officers.
Right.
These are the people that can help address the government. If you follow the Ministry of Agriculture, those are the frontliners in the whole Ministry of Agriculture. So they should be, in terms of incapacitated, in terms of monitoring mechanisms, in order for the, you know, what we just need to do is to change the mindset of a farmer. This mindset of saying year in, year out to receive agriculture inputs, year in, year out, that one has to be changed. Trust me, Zakia, I mean, seasons are not the same. Seasons have changed.
Right.
There was a time when 600,000 small-scale farmers received inputs, and productivity was really a bumper in the societies of Zambia.
Right.
Not anymore, not anymore. Because there are all these issues, market implications, climate change related issues. There are all these issues. So 1 million is a drop in an ocean with all these challenges that we are facing. So those loopholes and lacunas must be addressed. How then two people in the same household? I mean, why are you receiving inputs? Even when you have different portions of farms, it's not serving the interest. We have a small cake to share, and the purpose of sharing is mainly to uplift and empower the vulnerable but viable farmers. So that should be the focus. So if you and your wife have received, I think that's a challenge, and it must be addressed.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now let's combine the two, climate change and agriculture.
Yeah.
We've talked about these two separately, but let's combine them, because now that we are faced with what we are faced with in terms of climate change, how then does a farmer do in this case? We need, obviously, there are now issues of, now that we are, for example, this season, I mean, we have delayed rains, and meaning people are now planting in mid-December. Again, this calls for us to change the culture of farming, no? Isn't that the case now?
Yeah.
So amid this climate change, what is expected of these small-scale farmers, just so that their yield can still be reasonable amidst climate change?
It is true, Zakaria, that climate change has really implicated our agriculture. And I think I need to state that agriculture is a proper sector in the Zambian society, looking at the majority of the people that are there.
Yeah.
So reality must be said, because we have a lot of people in there. And I mean, climate change is not likely to change anytime soon to what it would. I mean, it was. So it is here to stay.
So
As long
there's
as-
no,
as long as we are not
as we
addressing-
are, there's no room for improvement on
I mean,
climate change.
as long as we're not improving our forest, as long as we're not improving our interaction with the environment,
Right.
then we shouldn't expect a change. There's no way you can expect a change in the climate, yet you are not changing in how you interact with the environment. This must correlate, and that should be the focus. Now, just to give you a context, if you look at flood-prone societies in the Zambian society.
Right.
They haven't experienced floods in the past 1 year or so. It has been there for the past 6, 7 years, or 7, or even more. But then the question is, what are we doing around those? What are we doing about it? And also, amidst climate change, one thing that I should, stress further is Zambia has to do a lot in terms of horticulture production. And what I mean by that is, during the rain season, when you have the floods, can we harvest the water? Can we harvest the water? When you have people being displaced as a result of these floods, you need to harvest the water. When you have harvested, remember when the floods have hit, most of the houses are destroyed and people are, displaced.
Yeah.
And the government comes through DMMU to provide relief issues.
Right.
And all the essential services required for the society. But then the question is, what happens after the floods have gone? They go back in their usual houses and they keep on looking Boma Yanganebo. So what we need to do as a society is to harvest water around that, especially around Monze, Namara somewhere, around Mambwe in Eastern Province. You need to harvest the water so that as soon as the rains are gone, you empower those small-scale farmers through the loans that the government is talking about. Through the loans, so that when they are empowered, then they increase, they make Zambia green in terms of production throughout the year. We shouldn't be importing some of these things like small, like vegetable. You go to ShopRite, you go to other big supermarkets, and then you discover you're looking for products blended from South Africa or other countries to mention. But I think we need to have that initiative of harvesting the water in all these flood-prone
societies. Is this through dams? Are you suggesting
I think
through
so.
dams?
Yes.
Right.
So that as soon as the rain, remember we have 3-4 months of rainfall in Zambia, which is not the case in West Africa. For example, in West Africa, they have, for example, in Cameroon, they have rain throughout the year. I can say throughout the year. So it's green throughout the year. And they are producing throughout the year. But we have once of rain and we produce once. So when floods have gone, people can interact now with vegetable production, gardening, and all sorts, and they supply to all these markets in Zambia. And that will reduce the cost of food. Now, what we also need to do is, in order to respond to this climate, as you say, delayed rains, I think what we need to, I know that the government has been talking a lot around early maturity crops. I think we need to adapt and accept that. Because I think this is December, mid-December. Normally, we used to have rain from as early as September, October, years back.
Yes. And
people could do with, I think, types of crop like MRI, which could grow 3 months later or so. That's not the period now. These ones have changed. So we need to sensitize a lot around early maturity crops, but also we need to sensitize farmers a lot around the legumes, because these legumes, they support intercropping and crop rotation. You can grow soybeans with other crops and other groundnuts with other crops, so that the fertility of the soil is not taken away. You produce within the small portion of land, you produce a lot of crops for your households and even for the society at large. You have excess in the production.
So this is the case where you can produce maize and groundnuts in the same field.
I think that's the case, because you know that maize does not add fertility in the soil, but groundnuts does. And you know that maize also does not add fertility to the soil, but soybeans does. So we need to speak a lot about intercropping. Ministry of Agriculture has been doing that, and other developing partners.
Right.
I think it needs to be more emphasized by the interaction with the small-scale farmers. This one must be. And when you look at issues when you are impacted with maize production, there are other crops that you can fall back on as a Zambian society. But then what we need to do in issues of crops like soybean, sunflower, groundnuts, and all these cassava and all other crops, we need to improve on value addition, so that this value addition aspect can expand your food varieties in the household, so that you don't necessarily depend on one crop amidst the changes in climate.
Right. Right.
I think what we just need to do, aside from the early maturity crops, we should also be talking a lot about investments within the rural areas, about value addition. We need to be talking a lot about that, because most of our small-scale farmers, they produce raw, products, and they sell them at a cheaper price. And that does not improve their income levels. And I'll keep referring you to about 65% of the population. So if you are not adding value within the rural area, creating the road network. I think that's what the government is trying to do currently, so that you can have this how can I say, barter system of trading within the rural areas, where this society is producing products from soybeans, from sunflower. This one is producing products from maize. The other one is producing, and you can, do the trading within yourselves, And this is what when you look at the 8th National Development Plan is focusing. When you look at the African Union Agenda 2063 is focusing on. And we even have expanded markets in issues of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So we cannot tap into that market if we don't, adapt. If we don't do a lot in as far as value addition to create the market, we cannot tap into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And the market will exist, but they will exploit us, because they will be dropping, they will be exporting to us, and we will not be exporting. And as soon as you don't export, then you're constraining the strength and the stamina of your economy. I think that must be addressed. But in order for us to tap into this, it has to start with the 65% plus small-scale farmers. These have to understand the purpose of adaptation. Of course they do, but then what we just need to understand it be materialized, and can we realize the benefits of this? And this can actually drive the FISIP. Now they have expanded FISIP, talking about groundnuts, they're talking about sunflower, they're talking about soybeans. Right. Yes, but now the question is, we need to strengthen the market as well, which the market can only be strengthened when you are able to add value to what you are producing, right, so that you can tap a bit of some dollar or kwacha on the local and international market.
Very interesting. Also, there's a talk around too much use of chemical fertilizer, for example, and also other chemicals such as weed killers in our agriculture setup today. And there are so many myths around weed killers, for example, that in the long run, this will definitely have an effect on our soils. Just tell us, with the knowledge that you have, about the use of chemical fertilizer, and as well as the issue of weed killer chemicals.
You've said it rightly, Zakaria. It is very true. And I think a good example I can give is in some parts of Zambia, for example, Southern Province,
right,
where in the last 20 years, it was a food basket for the society, the Zambian society. And their focus in agriculture in Southern Province was agriculture expansion, because they looked at the number of hectares of land that you have. And then that meant a lot of productivity, and in terms of tonnages of what maize that you produce. But then we have seen the impact in the past 10 years. The past 20 years, most of the soils no longer have fertility. And they are now calling for more usage of chemical fertilizer, because they need to improve the production. Now the soil has lost that taste, and it can no longer support your products. And in the soil there are gases that, there are some gases that support a plant growth. Nitrogen, potassium, calcium, you're talking about those. The more you use the chemical fertilizer, the more it, and the more then it leaves the plant vulnerable. And when you look at that, I think this is why majority of the developing partners now are talking a lot about intercropping and crop rotation to keep the fertility of the soil. So, for example, in a field where you planted maize, maybe next year don't plant maize. Plant something like sunflower or groundnuts or soybeans. Or you can do intercropping like we discussed. Maize with groundnuts, or maize with soybeans. And it grows so well. And sometimes the usage of all these weed killers, of course, is to lessen the labor aspect in as far as weeding and all those things are concerned. Right. But they affect our cities, our soils, as much as we might actually try to ignore it for the easy way. Shortcuts are always dangerous. You know that. When you use shortcuts, and we know that these are, and we need to adapt. I know that the world, is global, and we have moved. We are more into science and technology now.
That's right.
But to what extent have we seen mirrored the aspect of soil fertility? Because 10, 15 years ago, the percentage of the people depending on agriculture hasn't changed. So we still depend much on agriculture. But to what extent are we environmentally sensitive? Are we soil sensitive? in how we interact with the society, with the soil. I think that leaves a lot of questions, and that needs to be addressed. So yes, we are in a global village. Yes, we are in a science and technology world. Yes, I mean, societies will never be the same. Yes, we have to advance. Yes, we have to use mechanization. But to what extent our mechanization moving together with the food security demands of our society? To what extent is our mechanization moving together with advancements of the livelihoods of the people? To what extent are we bridging the gap between the poor and the rich? I think that must be addressed. So it's one thing to debate that we have moved in the science and we need to, I mean, society will never be the same. Can we change? Can we adapt to how the world is moving? Yes. But to what extent are you also taking into consideration investments around the 65%? Around the 65% that entirely depend on rain-fed agriculture. So yes, we can deal with that with issues of, avoidance of chemical utilization by, talking more about and encouraging our farmers on intercropping, crop rotation, and sometimes even using these chicken manure. It's not everyone who can have that. And the animal manure is not everyone who can have that. But where possible, farmers should be encouraged to use that, because really it sustains the fertility of the soil. And remember, a good example is from the village where you're coming from. I believe you are from a village at some point. Or
Yes.
So from the village where you're coming from, 10 or let's say 30 years ago, when you were born, maybe you were 5 in the family, and your father used to cultivate and feed you within, let's say, 5 hectares. And he was using to produce about 3 hectares of that land to feed you. Now you've grown, and some of your brothers and your cousins have married in the village. And your brothers and sisters have also been feeding from this same 5 hectares of your dad. You know, there's this entitlement. We live on our family land.
Yes.
So now your father was feeding you with 3 hectares when you were young, and you were 10 of you. Now all of you, 10 of you, have to depend on that 5 hectares. Come on. If you have depleted the fertility of the soil, to what extent are you able to do that? And to what extent have you invested in value addition? So these are the real, and that's why we're finding people relocating to the protected areas, because there's more fertile there.
Yeah.
And they clear out huge portions of land for agriculture production. Now they are moving from the soils where they have depleted, going into the new virgin soils, lands and portions of land to clear for, because they've seen where they're coming from, they are no longer productive. So we can't abandon that land. We need to do something. That's why crop rotation and intercropping is necessary. So the society has changed, yes, but the population is increasing. Remember that.
Yes.
At some point, we were okay with 500,000 farmers receiving FISIP, feeding the entire country. We were okay. But this time around, we have 1 million. And this 1 million looks enough. Trust me, it's a drop in the ocean, because you're talking about 1 million feeding the 20 plus million. I mean, there's no way you can expect things to be the same. So it's high time we invested a lot around how we can adapt, how we can, of course, try to survive amidst the challenges of climate change. Yes.
Now, Doc, let's also discuss the issues of the loans that this government has introduced for the farmers, the small scale farmers as well. Now they'll be entitled to get loans at about 12% interest in as far as improving agriculture is concerned. How do you describe this? Is this a good move? And if farmers are to take advantage of this, I mean, what would you suggest they invest in?
Okay, I think to start with, yes, it's a good move, because we are talking about challenges of capital for production.
Yes.
It's a good move, because most of our farmers have challenges to capital. They might have the capacity to produce, but they don't have capital. So
Right.
that limits their production. So it's a good move. And it is a welcome move, in my perspective.
Okay.
But then for us to attain this, for the purpose of this to be realized, there is need to improve the sensitization around the purpose of this loans acquisition.
Right.
And also the financial management of our small-scale farmers. This one must be stressed. When you have gotten a loan, bear in mind that at some point you'll be asked to pay.
Right.
Let's not behave like in the past years at some point where we could see people accessing loans, for example, from the CEEC.
Yes.
And people would get money there. And then when they have, at some point when it's due for them to pay, you see no payment back. And then how do you expect to roll up the process, the loans to other people? Because you're not paying back. So this one is a good move, but financial management, financial capacities must be emphasized amongst our people. Don't forget that majority of people, we have a lot of people that are, for lack of a better term, that are not literate. So issues of financial management, even us who are educated, we might not even understand financial management. It could be a challenge. So financial management is not only a problem to the small scale farmers, even the people that are working, the working class, the middle class, it is still a challenge. So this one, in terms of, I think in terms of investment, farmers can, I think I can say they
amid this climate change,
of course,
because we have to bear in mind that there's climate change, and so investment has to be very strategic by these people that are getting loans, right?
And not only amid this climate change, but you should also look at the market competitiveness,
right? Which
crops are really on market demand in the local market and the international market. I think it's necessary for the farmers also to consider legumes production. Really, if you look at crops like soybeans and groundnuts and sunflower, all these, they have other multiple purposes aside from the oil that you realize.
You're right.
You have, it can also be used as feed. So small scale farmers can actually engage themselves in poultry. So they can engage themselves in legume production, for example, legume production, and then you process the legumes that you produce so that the residues cannot go to waste. You use them on chicken production, on the poultry. And then when you use on poultry, then you expand your income, a capacity. You are able to tap into the local market within your community and even the district market, wherever. And sometimes we have farmers that are within the localities of the high school, boarding schools, where you can be supplying some of these products. But what we need to talk about, they should, I think the government should go beyond the loans by also creating value addition facilities within this area so that resources can rotate within the area, and then the surpluses can be pushed into the district, provincial, and the country at large, and also even beyond the borders. I think that's where the focus should be stressed more. And also, farmers should also focus on horticulture production. So in issues of, like we talked about, small-scale farmers depend much on rainfall. But now when you harvest the water, people can do irrigation systems within themselves. And then when you do irrigation system and you have harvested water, sustainable water, whatever, throughout the dry spell and the dry season, then you can be assured of the market. Because, demands on vegetables never go down. They are there throughout the year. And if you have met the local market, you can even export it, as long as you have met the standards that are required. And I think the government is doing much on helping the small-scale farmers produce what is internationally beyond the borders of Zambia, acceptable in terms of trade. So I think they can invest around just not legumes production. You can also expand in terms of, especially in cassava. You need to add value on cassava. There's a lot of products that can be produced from cassava. For your own information, there's a lot of pap, maize meal, whatever, maize, shima product, produced from the cassava in the West Africa. And there's a lot of products, even chips from cassava. And from whatever, even from soybeans, chips, they're producing that. There's a way they do the factory issues and then produce the chips. So there's a lot of products that you can produce from all these crops. But let's not limit ourselves in terms of selling raw products to other surrounding countries. For example, in terms of goats. So we have a lot of opportunities as well for livestock. So if we are producing a lot of goats, you see a lot of trucks passing here in Lusaka.
Going to Kasumbalesa.
But if you added value to those goats, you would get more than what you're getting from a live goat at the border in Kasumbalesa. You would get a lot of money. And there is market. So if we can sensitize and do a lot of value addition around goat meat, I'm telling you, there's a lot of demand around that. Even within the societies of Zambia, people are moving away now from meat, from beef to goat meat. Majority of the people are realizing the benefits of goat meat. So if you look at all this demand, but the question is, what are we doing about it? So all our small scale farmers do is, let me keep goats and produce them in numbers. Then I put them in a truck. Then I send them to Kasumbalesa. That's a good move. But I think they can realize more if we added value and packaged it nicely. And then we export it with a lot of expectation in terms of dollars and kwachas. So there's a lot. Amidst climate change, there's a lot of survival strategies. But over and above, we need to work towards harvesting water for irrigation systems and the mechanized irrigation systems among the small-scale farmers. But also we need to move more issues of smallholder agricultural aspects. But beyond that, we also need to emphasize more, especially the government and other developing partners, on value addition. Let that go beyond the talk. Let that be materialized. And that's the purpose.
And I'm thinking the winter maize song under the leadership of Manawasa should have continued.
Exactly.
Is this something that farmers that are looking up to benefit from these loans can think of in terms of investing in irrigation so that they can be able to be productive all year round?
I think that's one of the lucrative move that those that are getting loans can venture into, because you know that during the summertime, there's a lot of demand for maize. We can't run away from that. And if you just go beyond the fresh maize, selling the fresh maize, you even add value. You even package it, and you supply to all these shopping centers, and you have a sustained supply. The challenge we have is where you produce this year, and then these supermarkets expect you to supply every week or every month, and then you go 3 months, you don't supply. They are not going to wait for you. So they will find other sources of supply. And when your crops are ready, then you have challenges of market because they have found somewhere where to supply. So that's why now those that are getting loans should invest around cooperatives so that they work as a team. Remember, we are coming from concepts of Ubuntu, where we worked as a community. So it is high time they invested around a cooperative of some kind, so that production is not a once-off. Even during the summertime, it's not a once-off. They can be producing. They have different levels of crops production and supply to the market. There's no time that they run dry. But when you run it as an individual, it is always a challenge because you always have a time for harvest and a time for planting. And then that gives you a challenge to supply. And that makes your marketers to look elsewhere for supply. And as soon as you want to go back to them, you find that the market has been taken. Then you say there's no market. So those that are getting the loans, I think that's one avenue that they can look to. Invest in a group. Of course, you need financial literacy there because we have heard issues of challenges around the group issues, village banking, where someone like Zakaria runs away and now he's in Osaka. They don't know the village that he ran away with dollars and all those things. So there is a lot in terms of financial literacy that needs to be addressed.
Needs to be done, indeed. Well, Dr. Brivery Siamabele is our guest today. He's a lecturer of development studies at the University of Zambia, and he's more concentrated on climate change and, of course, small-scale farming with small-scale farmers, obviously. We will take your phone calls on 0955-221515 if you'd like to be a part of this conversation that we've had today. Also, send us your message on 0761-912493 for your participation if you would like to ask a question or indeed make a contribution. This is the Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue here on the Happy World of 5FM Radio. Remember, we are also live on our partner radio stations, and that's Tuta FM in Mansa on 90.7. And we are live also in Kabwe, Central Province on Spice FM 91.1 FM, and live on Wave FM in Mazabuka, covering the rest of Southern Province on 98.7. Here in Lusaka, you are well catered for. 5FM is broadcasting on 89.9 in Lusaka and the surrounding areas. Once again, this is the Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue. If you'd like to participate, call us now on 0955 221515. For your SMSs, indeed WhatsApp messages, send them to 0761 912493. We are discussing everything around agriculture vis-a-vis climate change. How is our future like in terms of climate change versus agriculture? And this is a big challenge, and these are the issues that we are discussing on our program today. Now, as we wait for those messages and phone calls to come, Doc, I would like to engage you in an issue of the fact that you mentioned the southern part of this country is prone now to droughts, and all this is due to the fact that climate change has hit hard on this side of the country. What then can farmers in the southern province do now that the situation is as is? Is there anything they can diversify into in terms of agriculture?
Thank you for that question. And I think allow me to start by saying that, yes, all the societies globally are affected by climate change.
Right.
I need to start by that. But then what makes it a bit different to developing countries and developed world is that developed world have invested a lot in as far as response to climate change is concerned.
Right.
But then in our case, we haven't done much in as far as response. That's why our farmers are vulnerable. Whenever you have a small flood, you're affected hugely, and your production is really dies out, and you don't have any other means. You don't have a fallback strategy.
Right.
I think that leaves.
Maybe just hold your thoughts.
Yeah.
Let me pick this call, and
Okay.
we'll continue on that conversation. Good morning, and welcome to the Burning.
Good morning, thank you. And how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and good to have you. Your name, sir, and where are you calling us from?
I'm a Siamabele, calling you from 10 miles.
From 10 miles.
The farmer who is in town, but he was supposed to be at the farm because of the climate change.
Let me get your name again.
Masite Matomola.
Matomola. I'll go with that. Matomola.
Yes.
So, yes, tell us your story.
Yeah, my thought is, the fact that today we are talking of climate change. We're supposed to find a solution to this because already we are affected. We're supposed to plant by November.
Right.
And today is 12th of December. We've not planted. You see, the fact of the matter is we need to invest in irrigation. We should not just build in rain-fed products, but irrigation is very cardinal, more especially for small-scale farmers. I remember the time they pronounced to say they want to go into irrigation. The first thing I called one of the organizations which is under Ministry of Agriculture. I was told, no, we've gone to Mukushi. There, they went to do the survey already with people in Mukushi, farm block. There are people, those people are able, because they've got what we call irrigation system. They are able to do winter maize because of the muscles they have. But some of us, small scale, if you do a research, the people who are supplying the market, even if are small scale farmers, but the government are not invested in that. That is where the problem is. Now we are talking of climate change because we believe in rain-fed. But we've got water, underwater ground. We've got Kaswe rivers. We've got Zambezi rivers. I think when the president was coming in, those are one area he was really emphasizing. This time around, yes, we can talk, we can have good explanation what is causing climate change. But what is the way forward? That's what we need, because already we are in December of planting. So what time are we going to plant? And we are not even fed with the information how the rain, it will last from today up to, I don't know, like up to April. So even our farming has been a gambling, because immediately you talk of a farming, there are two things involved. Before you even bring the fertilizer and the seed, you are talking of land and water. So when you've got water and land, that will make you to do your farming throughout. And this is what we are supposed to want. When we are talking about farming, we are talking about water. When we are talking about farming, we are talking about land. So this time around, the hope, we should not lose hope, because already the underground water is still there, but just that maybe the level has gone down because we didn't have some good rain. That's what I'm thinking. So what I'm encouraging whoever is responsible, let's have dams around small-scale farmers so that they don't necessarily depend on maize. They can do the winter maize through using the dam. They can do the winter maize using the river. All these politicians this around, if you really want to suppress mining and to go into agriculture, let's talk of how we are going to invest in agriculture in terms of water. I think that is the cardinal one. We can have fertilizer, yes, but if we don't have rain, if we don't have irrigation system, how does farming goes on? So please, I'm encouraging the government to invest in small farmers, because these commercial farmers have been in this industry for almost 20 years. Commercial farmers, they don't sell their product here in Zambia. Mostly they will sell it in dollars, and because they are commercial farmers. So probably, if you can promote the small-scale farmers with water, then we are home and dry. Any question for me?
Well, we've heard you. Thank you very much for that very detailed. The only question is, why are you in town and you're not at the farm? You know,
exactly.
Yes, that's a very good question, my brother. I don't know how many times I've called my farm today,
right.
But I'm told the rains have not rained that side, and they are raining here where we are not even planting.
Yeah.
Yes, that is Central Province. Yes, please.
No, we understand. Thank you very much, but we sure hope that it rains in Central Province so that you can be busy at the farm also.
Yes, for real, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motomola. Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
okay.
Bye. There you have it. You too can come through and have a conversation with us around climate change and, of course, agriculture. Let's take the next call. Good morning.
Good morning, Zach.
How are you today, Dr. Proud?
The guest one when I
Siamabele.
Siamabele mwabuka wetu badala.
Gabotu mwabuka wetu mdara.
Katwamba chitoka chwa kuderera bene Zaki hapo. Zaki naye wozie mbako na watonga kule.
Ndahwa.
Nikalipe kumpera kwa mutonga asenza ku 5 FM.
Kudibe.
Na mupasa wa mwegi mukandawire huko.
No problem.
Now kupera ku topic ya matomora. That serious. Vura sidi ndira. Nikukwapa dewa mbakushanga changa. Ikaroka ya mera. This is the time, Zach. And this issue of climate change, there is no climate change. You remember in the 80s, Zach, Kanyama was flooded by water. It's just a air which is rotating after some years. Those which happened in the 80s still coming again. The same way we got a short time, long days. Others we got long days, short days. It's just rotating after years. There's no climate change. In Kanyama, it was a disaster. People, they were having a tent, but if people today can have a tent, we are going to call climate change. There's no climate change. It's only time changing only. The weather is changing. After 5 years, After 5 years, whatever we are seeing, Mr. Hamawere, it used to happen. This is the tragedy you will see. They were water, the whole Lusaka. Now, if the water can come with the water, you know what is heading.
And Dr. Proud, they are always complaining about floods in garden. You haven't started harvesting water.
Right now, as I'm talking today, the garden, planting in my shop, there's a lot of water.
Harvest it, Dr. Proud.
We never see any grader moving in the garden compound. We are appealing to disaster management, such as those people are managing our water, Mr. Cohen, to come and help us. Because Garden Road is dead, my friend. You know Garden Road is the one which doesn't have a tenant, but we understand the government next year is going to work out Garden Road, the more they have done. But it's unaenda kwa post office, including the Lusaka Former. All those photos they have been done.
Thank you, man.
We want also to farm.
Zikomo va proud ndima mwayamba ma politics manje pano stika ma politics lelo yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Proud. I will take one more call, then I can let you respond to whatever has been raised so far. Good morning and welcome to the Burning Issue. Good morning to you. You're quite faint though. Your name and where you're calling us from? It could be the network. I hope you're not using your headsets, no?
No, I'm not using my headset.
We can hear you. I think you can hear him, Doc. Yeah,
even
please.
Though he's faint.
Yeah, you're faint, but please go ahead. Your name, sir, and where you're calling us from?
I hope Doc is able to get me there.
He's also complaining that you're a bit faint, but he will definitely pay attention.
Okay, no, thank you so much. Maybe it's the network. Otherwise, this is
Brother Chisha, so you just need to speak up.
Okay, I don't know what I can do.
We are not on speaker, no? It's quite faint though. It's quite faint.
I can't try it.
Let him try.
Try. Just speak out, speak up, and we'll try and hear you. Please go ahead, Brother Chisha.
Actually, I'm speaking like a preacher, you know. I'm speaking like a preacher now on the pulpit. I'm shouting.
Please try. Go ahead.
Good morning, Doc. One more.
Morning, thanks, Sachisha.
Thank you so much. You're explaining issues very, very well. Climate change is real, and we need people can plan for it. Otherwise, the situation we are in is so serious, and this is the work of our people in government, so that they put everything in place. Because this system of just crying about climate change year in, year out, I think it's not helping us at all. All what we need is solutions. Don't we have engineers? Don't we have people can at least see things and work on them? Why is it that each and every time people are crying over drainages? Each and every time people are crying over not having the cause of poor rainfall? Why should we have such a situation year in, year out? And even the issue of meteorological department, I want to hear from you, Doc. Is this department really workable? Because for them, when they tell you to say you're going to have drought, that's when you're going to have flood. When they tell you that you're going to have flood, that's when you're going to have a drought. How do they operate? Maybe you can help me, Doc, to understand this department. These are the departments which are just wasting money to me. Because I think if they cannot tell us how the weather is going to be, how do you expect people to plan? Because they will come and tell you to say, actually, this year, we are not going to experience any flood. That's when you are going to have more floods than the people will be affected in home. Is this department working? And even the ministry of what they call it, are they really helpful? Why can't just fund them? Because this ministry are just wasting money. They are not doing anything. I think I need a serious ruling from you, Doc. Thank you so much. My line is really deep.
Thank you. We've tried to pick just everything that you've said, Brother Chisha. Thank you very much for coming. And I'll let you respond, Doc, to some of those where you feel you need to make a response.
Thank you so much.
Right.
And really, there are different interpretations out there.
Right.
But I think one thing I'm grateful is that all of us understand climate change. I think that's what is coming out.
Yeah.
Mr. Matomora has said quite a lot around irrigation systems, and I think I will not stretch, but we talked about it.
We did, yes.
Yeah, but maybe one example is, let's look at the river Luangwa, which does not keep water. That river does not keep water. So it can be full when you're crossing going to Eastern Province there. But then a few months later, it will be dry and it's too sandy. So I think around those communities, we should think about harvesting the water, because there are rural households there that purely depend on agriculture. And that's a valley where there are high temperatures and others. But if they had irrigation systems around, despite the high temperatures that they're experiencing in the valley, they'll be productive year in, year out, because of the water levels and water bodies that they can have. I think that's a good solution. And that's a good, solution according to Matomora. Of course, we stress much around that. Dr. Proud, he always makes me laugh when he calls. And today I choose to take a different lens from him and tell him that climate change is real. Yes, in 1970s, yes, in 1960s, 1980s, these things used to happen, but the frequency differs, and the extent differs. So in the 1980s, challenges and whatever manifestation of climate change cannot be compared to what is existing now. I think that has to be clear. But also we need to understand that, yes, when he talks about time changing, that's climate. That's climate.
It is.
When he's talking about weather changes, patterns, high temperature, and others, Dr. Proud, wherever you are simply talking about climate change. So me and you are talking about the same thing. So, and you need to know that, yes, when you talk about the changes in the temperatures, maybe in the morning it was hot, in the afternoon it's cold, that's weather changes. It's not climate change. You can only determine climate change when you do, using the statistics from the Zambia Meteorological Department of Zambia, Meteorological, you can do the calculations and see for the past 35, at least more than 35 years. You can see the frequency and the changes in the temperatures, in the rainfall patterns, in the wind direction, and you can tell that now these communities and societies are really being affected by the changes in the climate aspects. So it's really, me and him are talking about the same language. I think I can also borrow from what Mr. Chisha said. Yes, climate change is real, and what we need now are solutions. We're not going to ask about the causes and find out we know them, they're there. They are known by even young ones. They are known the causes of climate change. But what are we doing about it? And that's why I was stressing that Africa needs to walk the talk. Zambia needs to walk the talk. We have solutions amongst ourselves. We do have solutions within ourselves. But let's implement and walk.
And we seem to be very mild approaching the issue of banning the charcoal burning. Practice.
And this is
we are so slow in
this is why I'm saying this is why I said we need to talk a lot about income generating activities. Colleagues, whether we like it or not, the impact at which we are cutting, the rate at which we are cutting down the trees is alarming. When you are driving to Southern Province, have you thrown your eyes into the hills, Monari Hills? You see no trees there. You don't see trees. People have gone to years back, they have now been on the hills, cutting the trees there, burning charcoal there. So there is no land where there are trees. When you're driving on to Eastern Province, you see no trees there, except in some portion of protected farms. That's the only parts where you see farm. Now, we are talking about changes in the rainfall, wind direction. I think I should talk about wind precipitation. So I think that's where the challenge is coming from. We need to understand, yes, the impact we are causing to climate is small, but then if the winds, when they are blowing, they don't find any protection elsewhere, they will just wipe out everything that you have. And you'll be left with nothing. We know about soil erosion. It blows the fertility, the top part of the top layer of the soil. It goes. So, but if there are trees, you'll be protected because the strong winds will be blocked by that. But we don't have that. That's why you're having issues of where houses are blown off, roofs are blown off by whatever. There are no trees around that. I think Dr. Proud can attest to that. In the past, Zambia did not have, we had those, but it's to a minimal extent. Because it was a forest. There was so much land that had a lot of forest, and it protected us. And also when we look at, I think with Mr. Chisha, I think in the recent past, Zambia Meteorological Department have tried. Because
they have quite invested in technology.
Exactly.
Also,
I think what he should be talking about is, incapacitated, this department. Strengthening their capacity, strengthening their machineries, strengthening their science, and strengthening their research. We need to invest on that because it forewarns us. As soon as we are warned, and correctly so, then the better we prepare for the impacts of climate change. I think in the past, just an example of yesterday, we saw some warning that there will be high temperatures in the next 1 week, and then around the 11th somewhere, some portions of the country will start receiving rain. And we saw it around the 11th. So I think there is a bit of
accuracy
in some kind. But of course, it requires a lot of investments. We don't expect them to work from the bruise. They need some science, and they need to have some machineries, which helps us. So it is our department. What we need to be talking about, what is it that you don't have? What is it that you need? What knowledge do you need? I think that's what we need to be talking about. As much as I'm concerned, I think they are trying. What we just need to do is to increase their capacity and improve investment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Brivery Siamabele is my guest, is lecturer of development studies at the University of Zambia and specialized more in climate change, adaptation and mitigation, and also concentrates more on small-scale farmers as well. We'll take some more calls on 0955 22 15 15. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Mauka bwa.
Dauka. Yeah. What's the name of the guest again?
Is Dr. Siamabele. Siamabele. And your name? And your name?
Smashman, Brother Morgan.
Brother Morgan.
Yeah.
Brother Morgan, please go ahead.
We need more educative programs like this, and these very serious programs, because it's not all the time bringing politics, but we want to bring things based on policy to help the people of Zambia, farmers, and the people of Zambia. We know that you are talking there because you have eaten something. Somebody in the office, a soldier, police driving without food, you can't walk. So for us as a citizen, this is a rain season where every farmer is busy trying to plant. But why is the rain ready to come? What should we do? What so that you claim to have a bumper harvest when you are not God? You don't know where the rain comes from. But now, you know, we have got different seeds. We have got the late maturing. We have early mature. And this is the issue why we need people. We took to university to start these issues. Continue telling the farmers what type of seed should they plant. And we have the focus with the tropical department. We can tell the people the truth that Vola is Africa, so is Abuela, so. We have been told that on 11th, the rain will start. And you have seen the rain is just little rain today. And today is 12. So we need, they need to be equipped so that they can have good machinery. Make sure that they tell us the truth. And even the farmer to be informed inadequately so that they prepare themselves what's next. Because if you were planted in November, the seed would have died in the soil. Because the person who knows how to the farming issues would tell you, but what should you educate the farmer properly? And so that for us as a citizen, it's a good program. Continue to get up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Morgan, for that. I'll take two more on 0955 22 This is Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue. You can also send us your message via WhatsApp or indeed SMS on 0761 912493 and 0955 221515. That one you can call us on just about now and we'll pick your phone call on once again 0955 221515. Let's pick this one. Good morning.
Brother Zaki, good morning.
Good morning, Brother Namanda.
Very fine, my brother. How are you?
I'm very well. And how are you?
I'm very fine. Today I'm very happy that...
Is it raining? Is it raining where you are?
Yes.
Is it in Kampumba, you say?
Yes, in Kampumba.
Is it raining?
Yes, it is raining heavily since yesterday.
Oh, I hope you are busy, sir.
Very busy indeed. Our guest, good morning.
Morning, Sanamanda.
Thank you very much. My guest, you are looking very well. And I'm proud of you that you have come on that fora to explain the effect, the disadvantages of climate change and how people should prepare. You know, Zambia when you talk of agriculture in Zambia, it is the backbone of this country. And if we were to invest heavily in agriculture, we were going to be the richest country, if not in Africa only, but the whole world. But the problem is that we have neglected some of the factors which are affecting the small-scale farmers. Number one, climate change, the way you have alluded. There is less civic education to the small-scale farmers to highlight them what kind of crop we should plant when there is a climate change. Let's say a dry spell. What kind of crops should we plant? When we see that this year we are going to experience some drought spell. If we are going to experience heavy rains, more than excessive, what kind of crops should we plant? There we are lagging behind. Yes, now we are seeing people crying year in, year out. We have just received the rains today. What a farmer should do, you plant 2 months, 1 month, 3 weeks, you are done. But some people, because of lack of knowledge, they are going to plant late mature. At the end of the day, they will not harvest anything. You know, agriculture, more money out of agriculture, and let us not depend on God-given rains. God is in, year out. But what do we do to the rains which God is giving us? Have we diverted in terms of harvesting water? We need to sink the dams, the reserve dams, in every and each province where there are no rivers. Let's say in Kapiri constituency, you have got 3 dams to reserve water. Even when in the next year, farming season, you have no rain, you still use the very water which you harvested the previous rain season to go into irrigation. But we just complain, no, there are floods here. What are you? Go China. In China, every 100 kilometers, there is a dam. Every 100 meters, there is a reserve tank. So that should they not receive rains tomorrow, they use the same reserves for irrigation. Even in October, you find maize, fresh maize. You find these fruits. But here in Zambia, it is a different setup. I would appeal to the government of the day, the listening government of the day, to put up strategic and serious measures with the policy direction to address these challenges so that even in September, we should be having winter maize. Even these other crops, so that these other neighboring countries can be coming to buy fresh maize from Zambia and any forex. Go to Botswana. They rely on beef. And what you have to know, my brother, in that studio, you need to educate us when you go to Western Province. Can you plant maize? The answer is no. Western Province, that is a swampy area. You need to at least educate them to plant more rice. When you go to Ruapula, it is cassava. You go to Eastern Province where Zaki comes from, it is groundnut. But the problem with Zaki, he knows that he lives where they are sensified. He wants to keep animals. They will die of sensified, lack of education. Have you seen now? So you need to tell us, where do we keep goats? Where do we keep cows? Where do we keep animals? Where do we keep it? You don't just rear chickens anyhow. There is an environment, climatic. Some of these crops, if you were to plant them, they don't germinate. Why? Because of the climate of that area. The soil itself, it does not allow. At the end of the day, such complain, no, kunota tuali mine, yeah, it's narime, titwakalima, tuahwanzala. It is because you don't know what you are supposed to do, how and when and where. You get the point? So let the government embark on each and every province. It is rich in something out of us. If you go to Serenge there you can have rice, you can have maize because the rains are stable. If you come to Kampumba, you're going to have maize and cotton, sunflower, cowfella. But when you talk of rice, you can't plant. Even fish, There are even rivers. If you go in Rwano Valley in Rwangwa, warasa ngemi kuswa, ileftira tini kunga. Lombanga waisa pamulungushi dam chapaba. So this is what we are saying now. So these small scale farmers, let the government see to it that they sink dams nearly to each and every district. Have 2 dams. It will be better for the small scale farmers so that we stop importing these tomatoes. We stop importing these oranges. 57 years of independence. Should I be eating a banana from South Africa? A banana from Botswana? Orange, imagine. What is it that we don't have here? These Chinese people who you see coming here, it is not that Zambia is poor. People who say Zambia is the poorest country, Zambia is poor. Me, I don't agree with them. If we were poor, why are we having Chinese people coming all the way from China, coming here to do what in a poorest country? They come and reap our resources, get our monies, God-given monies. They go and invest. Then they tell you, come and borrow. Borrowing the same money which they got from your own country.
Thank you very much, Brother Namanda.
Zambia is very rich.
Thank you.
I'm appealing finally to these small-scale farmers. This is rain season. You have to see to it that you plant. Time is still there. Don't be misled that no information. Kamuhanga ikutego mugategule mugaja nejejo muyanda mugaja nempindu junzajiro mutakaliri rumwi wamba kuti busubwa kamba akutatagwa akuyoga mubutala muniguti that
Twarumba.
you very good morning.
Thank you. Well, mouthful there, quite mouthful if you like. I mean, it's also appreciate. I mean, it's important to appreciate that a caller like Brother Namanda has basically encouraged and sent word and taught other listeners how best to plan your farming. Let me pick one more.
Okay.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm okay.
Your line is quite bad. Your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Woman Sanjay here in Kanyama.
Woman Sanjay, your line is very low. But
It's very bad.
yeah, but be quick. Just put across your.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead and put across your point. Oh, okay. We seem not to really able to get Woman Sanjay clearly there. We'll see if we can pick another call. Let's try this one. Good morning.
Good morning, Wazaki.
How are you today?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Your name and where are you calling us from, sir?
This is Felix calling from Matero.
Felix from Matelo. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Guest in the studio there.
Good morning, Sir Felix. Thank you.
Okay, you have highlighted a number of things concerning the climate change. Yes, I've agreed. And there are a lot of ripple effects that have caused the climate change to be where it is. One of the factors is in cutting down of trees, chemical pollution, and the other main things. It is not the way it used to be in the past. In the past, we were able to receive rains maybe in the early November there. Now, because of the ripple effects of chemical pollution and the other factors, have drastically made our climate change to change. So my question is, what parameters have you put in place since you deal with the weather? And secondly, my question that I would like to ask you, your department predicted accurately that on 11th we'll receive the rainfall. Thank you for the good.
Yeah, actually, he's not from meteorological department. He's a lecturer, but obviously concentrated on climate change, unless it's anything around climate change, Mr. Felix.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for the whole job.
Thank you very much.
What you are doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Great. Let's begin concluding and winding up, Doc. I know the phones are still coming, but let me have you respond. Maybe let me just take this last call. Let me take this last call. Good morning.
morning.
How are you today? Hello.
My contribution is
Your name, sir, and where you calling us from?
My name is Friday Zulu.
Friday Zulu.
Yes, please.
Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Rodspark.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. My issue is that just as the doctor there has articulated,
yeah,
I agree with him 100%. But now the contributing factor of the charcoals burning is, for example, us who are in towns here, electricity is very, very expensive. We have electricity in our homes, but what do? We normally buy charcoal for cooking, electricity for lighting, as well as for also other appliances. So the contributing factor is, if it's ESCO, the government made a deliberate policy whereby ESCO tariffs are reduced further, so that we are encouraged to use electricity for cooking and the other heating appliances, geysers, and so forth. So the contributing factor also is the expensive electricity. So if that can be done and looked into matter, this business can be reduced. People can then, when the government comes in and then put up a policy of arresting this issue of charcoal burning, then on the other side, reduce electricity tariff and encourage us, or they ask us to do the solar panels, whatever, the policy of that sort will benefit a lot. So that's my contribution, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great. That's our last caller, and right now we'll be making our conclusions. So, Doc, as we conclude your remarks on what the previous callers have so far said.
Okay, thank you so much, Zaki. I've known people abbreviate your name as Zaki, and
yes.
So I have to adapt as well.
Indeed.
I think I'll start with Mr. Zuru.
Right.
Yes, I think what we need to do is to diversify energy sources. And I think there's been a lot of talk around the energy diversification in the country.
Right.
But then I think investment around that must, to some extent, improve. We can do better. And you understand that it is also linked to what Mr. Namanda said. When you look at, if we understand ourselves better, we will know that we depend much on electricity, which is generated from our two main rivers that we depend on, Kafue and Zambezi. But now, if you look at the type of agriculture that we do, it is purely dependent on rain-fed. And then we're not doing much on water harvesting, like I said.
Right.
So you discover that all these big farmers all depend on these two rivers for their irrigation systems. And when they're irrigating, they're simply, yes, it improves productivity, but then it stresses the water levels in these rivers. And it directly implicating our electricity generation. And the implications on the electricity generation simply increases the cost of electricity to an average Zambian.
Yes.
And then an average Zambian has no option, but they tend to charcoal production, charcoal utilities. And then they give market to the rural societies. So it's a chain. So if we don't address the water issues, where these big farmers like sugar, Zambia Sugar, Kafue Sugar, and etc. to mention, but if they can have their own water points, which is harvested during the floods we have, look at the heavy rains that we have now. All this water is just going. It is going to west. Maybe to west might be a strong word, but if you look at what is happening in Ruangwa River, if today there is a heavy downpour around Ruangwa River, all that water goes direct, and it goes all the way to the Indian Ocean. We don't do anything with it. But if we can harvest it, then farmers stop depending on the rivers, then electricity production will be improved. And when you have improved in terms of electricity production, you lower the cost of electricity. And then you discourage households in urban areas from buying charcoal. Then you are discouraging the rural households because they don't have market. They don't have anywhere to supply. But as it is, they have huge market demand for charcoal. I think even you, Zach, you should have a bag of charcoal, which I'm discouraging anyway. But what we need to do is, I think if we enhance the water harvest and we diversify the sources of income for the rural households, and also we diversify the energy sources. For example, I don't know how the government can look at this, maybe sometimes even subsidize the gas production. That could be one way. Because if you go to West Africa, yes, they produce gas there. But nearly every household, for example, in Cameroon and other countries there, they use gas and it's cheaper there. But then if you are to subsidize such sources of energy, then you are discouraging people from engaging themselves with the forest. And that is not only the only cause of stressing the water bodies, I mean, rivers, the two main rivers that we have. Also, if you look at the amount of, the rate at which farmers are relocating from these flood and drought-prone societies like southern and eastern to some extent, going into the northern part in Ruapura, Mukushi, where it is still a forest, it is alarming, and it is. I think it should worry us as a society, because they are relocating, going to places that are still fertile and have good rain. And if you allow people to cut huge tracts of land, all that area is also coming to be like these places where they are coming from. So really, a solution must be found, and the solution is not people relocating to other provinces. No. The solution is them finding the local initiatives within the societies where they live. And on that point, that's why I would also agree with Morgan, where we say we need to invest a lot around research and development, where most of these solutions are not imported. They are not coming from developed world. We have the capacities. We have the learned people. We have the institutions that can, if at all empowered in the research and development, if at all they're empowered in terms of tools that are, required for research, they can provide us the knowledge that is locally, and that can be society acceptable, and the uptake of such knowledge, because it will be drawn with what people normally do, and what around their daily activities. So it will not be something new imported from somewhere. So around research and development, I think we need to do better there. And I also encourage the government to invest a lot around these all the research institutions, so that we can have locally solutions. And not in a situation where we are trying to match the local solutions with the international. No, we have to define ourselves. We are a society of Zambia. We have our own unique situations, unique environments, unique, peculiarities, all those things, which then we need to drive our solutions around that. And if we did so, then we can have indigenized solutions. And when we have solutions, the uptake by the communities will be easier. You don't have to preach about it, because that's what they do. You don't have to go to their communities and speak about what they do. You're simply drawing your solutions within what they do. Yes, we're in a globalized society, but then you cannot survive in a competitive international society if you don't define yourself. Zach, you have to know that. For you to be competitive in Osaka, you defined around your strength and your weakness. You dealt with your weaknesses and built around what actually, you are living with as a human being. And that's what we need to do as a society. It is good to go to the global and talk about climate change and all those things. But what are we doing about our rivers? We will talk, and it will be a talk. And I think I should also stress that we are tired of hearing every development expert saying we shall do this. I think since the time I was born, people have been saying we shall do this, we shall do this. They, in the next year we shall do, but we don't do it. Can we now change the narrative and say we are doing this? We are doing just like what the government is trying to say. I think that should be a move. So thank you so much for that opportunity, Isaac.
Well, it's been a pleasure hosting you, Dr. Brivery Siamabele, lecturer, development studies at the University of Zambia. Thank you very much for accepting our interview. And of course, we will be calling on you from time to time, because these things are getting hot, especially things to do with climate change and climate change conversations. So as we continue to have all these climate change conversations, we'll definitely be knocking on you for your input. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you so much. Anytime. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, listeners, that's what we had for you today on our Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue on the Happy World of 5FM Radio. We were also live on our partner radio stations, Tuta FM on 90.7 FM in Mansa. We were live on Spice FM in Kabwe, covering Central Province on 91.1. Here on 5FM on 89.9 in Lusaka. We were also live on Wave FM Radio in Mazabuka, covering the rest of Southern Province. Thank you very much for all of you that called, and those that did not manage to call but followed the conversation. We thank you. We will definitely be back next week with another Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue, but do make a date with us for the Thursday edition, as it will be coming this Thursday. From us always, take care of yourselves and more so of each other. Bye-bye.
Tune in next week